What's going on, everybody? UFC Saudi Arabia just finished up, and I'm going to recap everything that went down during this event. We ended up going 7-4 on picks, so not the most ideal. Both of the underdogs we picked did not end up winning. There was a couple of upsets as well. So let's talk about what went down. One thing that I don't think a lot of us noticed, but I saw it on Instagram, there was no ring girls this event. None. Not at the ceremonial weigh-ins, not at the actual event. And it's just so weird that none of us noticed any of that. Well, I guess some of us noticed because I saw somebody post it on Instagram, but that's just craziness. Wild. Anyway, let's go ahead and recap this card. Make sure to hit that like button down below. Drop a comment on how you thought the event went and your thoughts on the fights, and subscribe if you're new. Starting off the card was a finale to the Road to UFC show, event, whatever you want to call it, and it was Xiao going up against Chang Ho Lee. This ended, I believe, in a split decision, which honestly, it was probably the right way for it to end because it could have gone either way, in my opinion. We had Chang Ho Lee. He ended up winning this fight, and this fight ended up being like a lot of clinching. So when I was making my breakdowns, I picked Chang Ho Lee because I thought he would be the better striker on the feet, and despite being able and susceptible, there we go, to getting taken down, he doesn't give up on himself. He keeps fighting. He comes forward and will work to try to get back to his feet. He'll just constantly work. This fight was kind of different from what I saw in his previous fight, but like I said, I didn't really find much tape on either of these guys. Xiao was doing well on the feet in open environment. He was landing the better strikes, in my opinion. A lot of Chang Ho Lee's success came from knees in the clinch. I don't know how many he threw, how many he landed, but this fight took place a lot in the clinch, and Chang Ho Lee was eating up Xiao's body with those knees. And I guess that's what ended up swaying the judges. Xiao landed some good stuff on the feet. He ended up wrestling a little bit as well, getting Chang Ho Lee down a couple of times throughout this fight. Also, I'm not going to scream robbery on any side. I think it was a very close fight, and it was very subjective on who the judges thought won. Two out of the three thought Chang Ho Lee won, and thankfully we ended up starting the card with a win. But in terms of like the performance, I know it sounds funny because Xiao lost the fight on the scorecards, and even though we had Chang Ho Lee, I thought he fought the better fight. He looked better in there. Chang Ho Lee kind of like faded throughout the fight as well. It looked like he was slowing down a lot in that third round especially, but he was doing great work in the clinch with those knees to the body. Ended up starting off the card with a win in our prediction column, so let's continue. Next up was Gadzhiyasulov going up against Ribeiro, and this fight was scary at the beginning. We had Gadzhiyasulov as our pick. He was a minus 350 favorite, and that was the scariest part about the entire thing, because even though he is the better fighter, technique-wise on the feet, when it came to the wrestling and grappling as well, but I recognized Ribeiro's danger factor. This guy has power in his hands and can put anybody away. So I was not very confident on the Gadzhiyasulov side, and that first round was such a shock to me, and not because Ribeiro won the round, but it's how he won the round. He was the one engaging in the clinching. He was the one engaging in the wrestling. He also landed a very effective leg kick, calf kick on Gadzhiyasulov that visually looked like he started limping from it. I honestly thought he was going to be done after that. I thought Ribeiro would continue kicking that calf and eventually it would just kind of give out on Gadzhiyasulov. But Ribeiro ended up getting that first round. But then in that second round, Gadzhiyasulov went all in on the wrestling and ended up getting some takedowns in the second round to Ribeiro. And as the fight continued into that third round as well, the takedowns just became easier for him. Ribeiro seemed to gas out a lot and wasn't really putting up much of a fight in terms of takedown defense. So Gadzhiyasulov did what he needed to do to get that win after dropping that first round and getting his calf like blown up. It was a weird visual to see him start limping like that off of a one calf kick, but regardless, very weird first round. Ribeiro comes in with a clinching and wrestling game plan and ends up getting the first round 10-9 for him. But then Gadzhiyasulov, we broke down that, like I said, he is the better overall fighter, but he's not your typical Russian fighter in the sense that he's going to be all in on the wrestling. He has that skill in his back pocket, but he is a kickboxer. He has that base in his fighting style and is the more technical kickboxer in this matchup. I was just worried about that power from Ribeiro. Gadzhiyasulov ended up nullifying it. It was quite a boring fight, to be completely honest with you guys. But regardless, Gadzhiyasulov got it done. Super weird scorecard. One of the judges had it 28-28. All right, which means that judge gave Ribeiro a 10-8 first round. I'm not a judge, but what justified a 10-8 round for Ribeiro in that first round? I have no idea. If you guys do, please let me know in the comments. I want to hear it. I don't know what justified a 10-8 round. That was crazy. And there was a few other crazy scorecards, I feel like, that I'm going to talk about throughout this card as well. But Gadzhiyasulov got it done. 2-0 so far on the card. Let's move on. Next up was a bantamweight fight. Kang going up against Muin Gafurov. We chose the underdog here in Kang, and Muin Gafurov got it done. He ended up getting 30-27 unanimous decision, and I'm not going to argue with that. Even though Kang had his moments in the second and third round, it was mainly control in the grappling and the wrestling that he found success with. He didn't really land any huge shots on the feet, wasn't really finding the mark on the feet as much as I thought he would. His age honestly kind of showed in this fight. He's 36 years old now. I just haven't had much faith in Gafurov. He hasn't shown me anything in terms of like high skill level in his fights. I didn't have trust in him, but he came out here and just looked better everywhere than Kang, which was a big shock to me. Despite the lines and how Kang was the dog in this matchup, Gafurov surprised me with his performance here. In that first round, he was just better everywhere. The wrestling, the striking. In that second round, Kang looked like he was on his way to tying things up 1-1. For the better part of that first half in the second round, he solidified a takedown and garnered a lot of control on Gafurov in that top position. Unfortunately, Gafurov ended up slipping out. I don't know if it was like reversing a position, but he ended up getting out of bottom position and then had some nice sequences to finish off that round in the striking. And it just looked good in the terms because Kang, regardless of all that control time, regardless of the success he was finding in those wrestling and grappling scenarios, he wasn't really doing much with it. He wasn't finding any success on the feet either. So when Gafurov gave the judges those moments on the feet, it's hard not to give him that. And the same kind of thing happened in that third round. Kang found some success in the wrestling, in the control on the mat, but not really mounting anything super, like, not really mounting any offense that the judges can really say, wow, Kang, that round goes to him. Gafurov ends up getting back to his feet, and he had that moment at the end of the round as well. He landed some big strikes, had Kang visibly hurt as well, landed an emphatic spinning wheel kick, and it's just hard to argue with that decision of 30-27 when even though Kang found that success in the control, he wasn't really doing much damage-wise in the striking on the mat even. So good win for Gafurov. He showed signs of actual skill. I just thought Kang would come out and look a little bit better, but I think his age kind of showed in this fight here. Let's move on. We are 2-1 so far as we go through the card. Next up, Fakhretdinov against Nicholas Dalby. And Renat, it's like he lives in a simulation. All of his fights end up going exactly the same. This guy looks great in that first round, hurts his opponent in that first round. I'm pretty sure he dropped Dalby. He was looking good. Dalby found some success in the clinch. He looked really strong holding up Fakhretdinov against the cage, but ultimately Renat landed the better strikes, ended up dropping Dalby, and he got that first round. Second round, Dalby just puts the pace on him. Renat seems to be slowing down. He was able to land takedowns throughout this fight, but the problem with Fakhretdinov, as good as his takedowns are, he can't control his opponents on the mat. He continuously shows this in his fights, and I don't know if he's just not strong enough. I can't really see that being a thing because he's strong enough to get his opponents there. He just can't keep them there. I don't know what it is, but Dalby did a good job getting back to his feet. He was pushing the pace like we mentioned in our breakdown. He weaponizes that cardio and just gets better as the fight goes on. In my opinion, he took that second round. In the third round, Fakhretdinov was diving for legs. He was getting takedowns. He was solidifying them, but he really wasn't doing much else. But on top of that fact, he was nullifying the ability for Dalby to really do anything either. So I think he solidified that third round as well. This was another split decision. I'm not going to say it's super crazy, I guess you can say, because in that third round, Fakhretdinov didn't really do much in terms of striking or damage-wise, and Dalby was able to get back to his feet and kind of land those strikes and do a little bit there. I don't think it was enough to garner him a win for that third round, but I think despite the split decision, I think the right fighter won in this matchup. But like I said, Fakhretdinov is living in a simulation where all of his fights go exactly the same. Looks fantastic. Hurts his opponent in that first and then just slowly fades throughout his fights. And that was kind of my breakdown as well. I said the thing that scares me about this matchup is if you go based off of these two fighters and their previous fights, you would think this is a recipe for Dalby to get the win. Fakhretdinov looked good in that first and dropped the second won the first and second in his last fight, but got 10-8 in the third because he gassed and almost got finished. Hence the draw. Dalby in his last fight weathered an early storm, came back, and when his opponent gassed, he stepped on the gas of his own and ended up finishing him. That was Gabriel Bonfim. So if you went by that, you would think Dalby should win this fight, and he almost did. He almost did. It was close. It was a split. Thankfully, Fakhretdinov got it done for us. We are 3-1 going into the fifth fight of the card. Let's continue. We had Muhammad Naimov going up against Felipe Lima, the short notice opponent for Naimov. Now, this fight ended with a third round submission on the Felipe Lima side. And what a shocking outcome. Now, this line was set basically at a pick-em for the entire time. Leading up to the fight, I think Lima ended up being the slight underdog. I think he got even money on him. But I didn't really get to watch this fight completely. I did have it on in the background, so I was listening to Bisping, Anik, and Cormier talking about the fight, and it seemed like Lima landed a big flying knee in that first round, but ultimately Naimov was running away with that fight in the first and the second, and it seemed like he was on his way to a victory. But Felipe Lima, going into the corner between the second and third round, his coaches got in his face telling him, you got to go, you got to do something spectacular here to get a win here in your short notice UFC debut. And what did he do? He comes out, takes the back of Naimov and chokes him out. There was no fighter on the planet that was getting out of that choke from Felipe Lima. That was so deep in there, and if Naimov didn't tap, he was going to sleep. Fantastic performance for the UFC debuter. I thought Naimov would be able to get it done. He was on his way to getting it done, but I guess that jiu-jitsu of Lima, that tenacity of Lima, did I say De Lima? I meant Lima. The tenacity of Lima and that no quit kind of attitude really helped him in this matchup. And I'm regardless of getting the pick wrong, I'm happy for the kid. Came in on super short notice, wanted the fight, got the fight, and ended up finishing the fight against a visibly bigger opponent as well. So good for Felipe Lima. We end up losing this pick, so I think we're 3-2 so far on the night. Let's get into the next fight. Nasrat Haqparast going up against Jared Gordon. Now this is probably fight of the night, honestly. This was a beautiful scrap from the moment it started to the end. These boys were throwing heat the entire time, and there was no let up. There was little moments where Jared Gordon would kind of go for takedowns, but other than that, this was all gas from both sides, throwing bombs at each other, and just nonstop go from both sides. Now, some people, I believe this was another split decision. I thought it should have gone to Jared Gordon, but I think because from what I saw, Jared Gordon was landing the better strikes, at least visually. It seemed like Haqparast was getting hurt by these strikes. Now, if you look at both of these guys' faces, Jared Gordon looks busted up. So it's kind of weird saying that Jared Gordon was the one that landed the better strikes, but Haqparast landed some good shots as well. I'm not saying that, but visually, it's just throughout watching this fight, it seemed like Jared Gordon was landing the more effective strikes. He also outstruck Haqparast in the second and third round. Now, the problem is the judges don't have access to those numbers. So it depends what they're seeing cage side. You know what I mean? I don't know if they get monitors like the like the commentating crew does. I'm not 100% sure, but they don't get access to the numbers. They don't know Jared Gordon outstruck Haqparast in the second and third round. We do, so that might sway our decision. We also get to hear the commentators, which also may sway our decision. So I'm not going to say, like, I'm not going to scream robbery. I picked Haqparast. I'm happy he ended up getting the win for that fact. Kind of sucks for Jared Gordon because he put up a fantastic fight against a good young prospect in Haqparast. But ultimately, fantastic scrap. Should be fight of the night, honestly, in my opinion. Great lightweight bout between these two men, and we ended up getting another one. So 4-2 so far. Let's keep rolling through the card. Johnny Walker and Volkan Oezdamir. I think this was the main card opener. So here we go with that plug-in again. Make sure you guys like that video if you haven't already. Comment your thoughts on the event and each fight, whatever fight you guys want to talk about down below, and subscribe if you're new. The main card opener, Johnny Walker and Volkan Oezdamir. Oezdamir knocks out Johnny Walker cold in that first round, and we ended up getting another one. This was actually, I guess Volkan was an underdog. He ended up as an underdog just before the fight. He was a pick'em at the time of me picking him, but he ended up getting it done. Johnny Walker really didn't get any offense going. There wasn't enough time to. Volkan really lived up to his no-time nickname, putting away Johnny Walker in that first round. Johnny was looking decent with his kicks early on. He was chewing up Volkan's leg with some nice calf kicks. He was also using that teep kick up the middle to kind of like keep Volkan off of him. But the problem is Johnny Walker has no chin. Volkan kept walking him down. He put him up against the cage and just had a nice sequence where he dropped him. Johnny Walker got back to his feet, but Volkan smelled blood in the water, did not give up, kept moving forward, and then put Johnny Walker away. He did land an extra punch as Johnny Walker was, after he got dropped the second time, that literally put him out cold. He was like convulsing on the ground, kind of, from what I saw. Not like aggressive convulsions, but like still. The problem, so it was Jason Herzog reffing this fight, and some people may say that was an unnecessary shot. I heard the commentating team say something like that was it's because the ref didn't step in early enough. Now, here's the problem with criticizing referees so much, because this is the same ref, Jason Herzog, that reffed the Cannonier and Imavov fight. So everybody in the whole world and their mothers are saying that Jason Herzog stopped that fight early. So now this guy is going back into a pretty significant fight, okay, in terms of how the division will play out, just like the Cannonier Imavov fight, okay? Johnny Walker, Volkan Oezdamir, top 5, top 10-ish guys, and both of their careers trajectory could go in different ways depending on how this goes. So I think he has that in the back of his mind. He's like, he doesn't want to do the same thing he did. So because of all that scrutiny, he didn't step in right away that he probably should have. When that second time Johnny Walker got dropped, it is visually evident that he is not going to get back to his feet. Volkan Oezdamir knocked him out. But he didn't step in, so Volkan gave him that extra shot that really did put Walker away. So, like, there's like give and take here. The refs have a tough job. So are we going to scrutinize him for not stepping in early enough? The commentating team seems to have a problem with Herzog not stepping in early enough. They said it. I don't know if it was Bisping or Cormier, but, like, what are you going to do? This is why it's so hard to scrutinize a tough job like reffing. The judging, I'm okay with scrutinizing because some of them just blatantly get it wrong. But anyway, huge win for Volkan Oezdamir. Kind of like, I went off on a tangent there, kind of, but I had to. It had to be done. I had to say it. Regardless, we went with Volkan. I couldn't trust Johnny Walker's chin. I don't think he should fight anymore. He doesn't have a chin. He can only fight if he doesn't get punched. That's it. Next up, we got Xiao Bullet Magomedov going up against Antonio Trocoli. Trocoli is what they were calling him, like broccoli in this fight. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I thought it was Trocoli. I'm going to keep calling him Trocoli because that's kind of how I'm thinking it's pronounced. But anyway, how this fight played out. Xiao Bullet did not look good. I don't know if you guys agree. I was expecting a lot more from Xiao, especially haven't seen him for 8 months. The guy looks like a freaking savage. He is a savage. His striking is amazing. Very kick-friendly. I love watching Xiao Bullet fight, but he did not look good in this fight here. Very mid, very, like, yes, he got the third round finish. Okay? Yes, I understand that. It's a KO victory in the UFC. Good for him. But his performance leading up to that was shit. First round, Trocoli comes in and just clinches him basically the whole time. Xiao Bullet doesn't really mount any offense. Trocoli was the one landing. Not a good look. Drops that first round. I'm talking about Magomedov. Second round, kind of the same thing. Getting pressed up against the cage. Yes, Shara's finding his mark in the striking. Trocoli is as well. But Trocoli is clinching up, and Shara can't get off the fence. And there was a monumental moment that could have changed the outcome of this fight. Shara Bullet's about to get taken down, and that is the most aggressive fence grab I've ever seen in my life, and Mark Goddard did nothing about it. Magomedov stopped himself from getting taken down and kind of put his hands up like, oh, my bad. And then Mark Goddard, I don't know if he warned him. Well, he didn't do anything. Prior to this, we saw in a fight, I don't know which fight it was. Was it the Naimov fight, maybe with Lima? I don't know which fight exactly it was, but it was with Herzog. Herzog saw a fence grab that prevented that one fighter to get a takedown. Instead of not doing anything and then warning them later like Mark Goddard did, he gave the position to the opponent, to the fighter trying to get the takedown. He's like, no, timeout, get on the ground. You stopped yourself blatantly from getting a takedown. From getting taken down. I won't take a point from you, but you are going to go on the mat, and your opponent will be on top of you. So, Mark Goddard sees it happen. Magomedov kind of like, oh, my bad. And Mark Goddard didn't take a point, didn't give Trocoli the position, nothing. And then Trocoli ends up gassing and gets finished in that third. It was so weird to see, too. Trocoli at some points was just sitting there staring at Shara, just standing there, staring. And just like every once in a while would like try to shoot for the stupid sloppy-ass takedown. And Shara was just kind of dancing left, right, throwing a low kick. Left, right, throwing a low kick. I don't even know. I don't think he even knew what was going on. Trocoli was literally just staring at him, not fighting, not moving, nothing. Poor performance from Magomedov. Should have got a point taken away or gotten put on the mat. Who knows what would have happened in that fight if Magomedov got taken down. Trocoli probably gasses out anyway and gets finished later just like he did. But regardless, I had a lot more hype behind Shara. I felt like I wasn't impressed with him at all. He was a minus 600 favorite. I think the biggest favorite on the card, if I'm not mistaken, and did not look like the biggest favorite on the card. Enough shitting on Shara. Let's move on to the featured fight of the night. It was Kelvin Gastelum going up against Daniel Rodriguez, and this fight pissed me off because you see how it says welterweight here on the top of the screen? You can't see my fingers there, though. It was a middleweight fight because Kelvin Gastelum apparently got staph infection during the camp or whatever. I don't know what it was. It's all excuses. He forced a middleweight fight against Daniel Rodriguez and doesn't get penalized for it. Daniel Rodriguez doesn't get 30% purse because, yes, I guess he ended up accepting the new weight. But regardless, Daniel Rodriguez cuts down, is already cutting weight for his welterweight fight. 2-3 days in advance, this guy is now getting told that Kelvin Gastelum can't make the weight, so the fight's probably going to be off. So instead of that, Daniel Rodriguez is like, yo, fuck that. I'm getting paid. Let's fight at middleweight. They were even talking about a catch weight at 180, and Gastelum still couldn't make that weight. I don't know if he just didn't want to cut weight, what it was. This fight just kind of pissed me off. Gastelum, between all the weird scorecards that we had, you're telling me that not one judge scored this fight for Daniel Rodriguez. Yes, Gastelum ended up mixing in the takedowns, but he did nothing with the first takedown in the second, I believe. Wasn't able to take him down in the first. And in the third, I'll give him that one, okay? He was keeping up with Daniel Rodriguez on the feet. Volume-wise, he was landing good power strikes as well. But D-Rod seemed to be landing the more impactful shots. He was landing the better strikes on the feet. Like, yes, Gastelum landed a few good low kicks. Like I'm saying, like it was just, I'm shocked that between all the split decisions and weird scorecards and that Daniel Rodriguez didn't get any love. Didn't get anybody thought that this guy, am I on an island here? Am I the only one that thought D-Rod had a possibility of winning at least one judge's scorecard? Yes, I will give the fight to Gastelum. Still pisses me off that that Daniel Rodriguez was forced to fight at middleweight, or that he wouldn't be able to fight. Regardless, Gastelum won. Okay, I'm not saying that. I scored it for him as well. It pissed me off to say it because I'm a Gastelum hater, I guess you could say now at this point. But I'm just shocked that they didn't give Daniel Rodriguez any of the, they didn't give him 2 out of 3 rounds. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. His hands looked good. He did gas though. That's one thing I will say. It was kind of to his detriment. He did end up slowing down. He gassed, but he was landing big strikes on Gastelum. They kept up with the volume. I don't want to talk about this fight anymore. I'm pissed. Let's go to the co-main event. Next up, it was Sergey Pavlovich going up against Alexander Volkov. And I know hindsight is 20/20, but as I continued watching this fight, it just became blatantly obvious to me that the pick was always Volkov. It should have always been Volkov. I broke down in my fight that Pavlovich has the power to KO anybody. And for some reason, I had this visual, I had this nagging feeling that regardless of how well Volkov was going to be doing in this fight, that Pavlovich would eventually find that one blow that puts him away, similar to how Derek Lewis finished off Alexander Volkov. But that never materialized. Despite having the 4-inch reach advantage against Volkov, Volkov was using that range beautifully in this fight. We also mentioned in the breakdown that Pavlovich doesn't care about crashing the pocket and getting hit because he knows that if he lands, it'll be way more devastating than if somebody landed on him. The problem was he wasn't able to close that gap effectively against somebody like Volkov. Volkov was using those kicks up the middle really well. He was chewing up the body of Pavlovich with those body kicks. He was getting some good leg kicks in as well. Was utilizing that jab to perfection. Every time Pavlovich wanted to close the gap, Volkov stuck out that jab. And it was a beautiful performance, honestly. I don't even know what the scorecards ended up being because I was so frustrated with Pavlovich. But he couldn't materialize that KO. I don't think he ever landed like super clean on Volkov. Yes, he did land. I think he landed a few like jabs down the middle. I think they were both exchanging a lot of jabs when they were like crashing in. But in terms of like a huge like bomb landing on Volkov, I don't think Pavlovich ended up landing anything like that of the sort. I know it's easy to say what I said earlier about how as you're watching the fight, the obvious pick starts to just kind of eat away at you, that it always should have been that pick. But I told myself I'm going to stop picking fighters just because they have that ability to KO. I just had this weird nagging visual of Volkov just having a perfect fight and then getting slept. And I couldn't get away from that. Volkov, very impressive win to just nullify anything, the danger factor of Pavlovich. It was beautiful. Great win for Volkov. It's going to be weird to see what's next for Pavlovich, that's for sure. Next up, we have the main event, Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov, and this one got me fired up. All week, I'm seeing a ton of people online. Bobby Knuckles is done for. Aliskerov's the real deal. It's like, and I wasn't disagreeing with that. Aliskerov is a fantastic fighter, but nobody was giving Bobby the credit. The UFC, like MMA fans are just so weird. They're so weird because this guy has only lost to former and current champions in the past like 7, 8, whatever the amount of years is. And everybody just see these Dagestani fighters and they're like, oh, there's no way anybody's beating them. And I'm a big Aliskerov guy. I've picked him in his Contender Series fight and his 2 UFC fights. I've picked him in all 3 of those. Because I understand that danger factor. I understand his skills and abilities on the feet and in the grappling. I just don't understand how people... it's not just... it doesn't just come down to skills and abilities. And the fact that people were saying Aliskerov is like miles ahead or is just going to just kick the shit out of Whittaker or whatever they were saying. Whatever. I read a lot of different things. Whittaker is not a slouch. Dude, this guy is... Well, clearly after that KO in the first round against Aliskerov, clearly he is the better fighter. But the guy's got one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the UFC, despite what people want to say. And everybody was just writing him off so quickly and so easily. But there's a lot of, my whole point of saying this is, it's not when you're breaking down fights, yes, I get stuff wrong too. I get it. We just talked about it. I got Pavlovich wrong. So, I'm not saying, oh, I know everything. I'm just saying there's a lot more. It's not so, black and white. It's not so, 1 + 1, 2+2, whatever, when it comes to breaking down fights. There's a lot of external factors you have to take into consideration as well. Robert Whittaker was supposed to fight in Saudi Arabia against Chimaev, arguably a better version of Aliskerov, if we're going to talk about it like that, right? So that's what his whole camp is based around. That's who he has in mind the whole time. So when he got the fight, when the fight was canceled and then Aliskerov stepped up, there's nothing much different about what he was training. It's not a completely different style. It's arguably the same fighter, just a lesser version of that fighter. So there wasn't really much change for Whittaker. It was the same venue, same sort of fighter style-wise. And yeah, so not much change for the Robert Whittaker side. Now on the Ikram Aliskerov side, there is some difference. Aliskerov was supposed to fight last week at the UFC Apex, UFC Vegas 93, against Antonio Trocoli, who shot a bullet a few fights ago that we broke down. Completely different, never mind completely different fighter, completely different realm of skill as well, okay, experience-wise, skill level-wise. Everything about Antonio Trocoli and Robert Whittaker is just different. Okay, so Aliskerov is training for this Trocoli person, all right? Well, he was training for Andre Muniz, I believe, and then Trocoli, and then he ended up stepping up against Whittaker. Like, good for him for doing that. He saved the card. I get it. I'm pumped for him for having that opportunity, not for him getting KO'd. But, like, he was supposed to fight in Vegas. Supposed to fight a completely different person, not even close to the skill level or experience level of Robert Whittaker. In Vegas. So this guy, on short notice, has to go to Saudi Arabia, still cut the weight, did not train for somebody to the ability of Robert Whittaker, and that was a lot of the reason why I picked Whittaker. I thought these guys were pretty evenly matched, and in terms of skill, Whittaker was probably the better striker. Maybe not the more dangerous one, but we saw how that turned out, didn't we? Anyway, we had Robert Whittaker. He got it done in emphatic fashion. This guy is not going anywhere. KOs Aliskerov in that first round, and he gets it done. He is right back in the mix for a title elimination fight. I'm super excited because Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya was booked for UFC 305 in Perth. 2 months. Whittaker didn't take any damage here. Are we going to see Robert Whittaker fight a title eliminator on the same card as Izzy and du Plessis in hopes that he can get the next middleweight title shot? I don't know. Would it be sick? Yes, of course it would be sick. But anyway, that's the recap for UFC Saudi Arabia. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on the event as a whole. Let me know what you guys thought about the fights in general, your picks, your thoughts on my picks, and just all that fun stuff. Make sure to hit that like button as well and subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys once again for watching another video. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.